What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York. We are at the Gramercy Theater today. We got an awesome show happening right now at Dark Tranquillity's finishing up their set. We interviewed Finland's finest, we interviewed Sweden's finest, and now we're here with Portugal's finest. I'm here with Moonspell. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your words. Portugal's finest sounds wonders.
Yeah. It definitely does. You guys just played an absolutely killer set tonight. And it's fair to say you've had a busy couple of years. You just released 1755, your latest record, as well as La Sposa, Underneath the Spell. Just how's 2017, 2018 been?
Yeah, definitely busy. I don't know, 1755 was just something that came out of the blue. Actually, we were entertaining the thought of making it like a bonus for Lisboa Under the Spell, but then it will be over the top. And I think that sometimes it's just searching, like you're a musician, you start like wondering where's the inspiration coming from, and sometimes it's just in front of you, you know, and a piece of Portuguese history, and we decided to take it, like to delay all the plans, including the DVD, because there's time for everything. So 2017, 2018 were basically spent on the road as well, promoting this, and we kind of didn't stop because we kind of did the transition between 1755 and now the new DVD, the live release, Lisboa Under the Spell. So yeah, we're keeping ourselves busy, but also we try to be as much as we can in Portugal because it's also wonderful to be there. And also this new DVD is going really well over there. It's already 2 weeks at #1 in the Portuguese charts. So gigs just keep coming, and I love to play abroad. But in Portugal nowadays, you know, it seems like Moonspell is also becoming a household name, not only for metal, but also for rock, which is something that it's cool for us because we never expected anything like this to happen, yeah.
Definitely. And, you know, I actually didn't know this until you presented it tonight on stage, but I know that 1755 had a story and a concept behind it dealing with the earthquake that happened that year. Did you, like, have music already and, like, think of this concept afterwards, or did you think of this concept and write music according to that idea?
It kind of helps when you have the concept. It's like I've always been a lot into conceptual albums like Abigail, King Diamond, you know, even other Operation Mindscrime. I always liked when bands actually took the time, you know, to work on something like it's really solid and it's really interesting because you get to write a lot about it and you get to investigate a lot about it. So 1755, it was like the end of the 18th century. There was this big natural disaster with the big death count. But obviously it was also the way that Portugal had to change, because there was 3 countries in Europe that still had Inquisition going and a very stronghold of Catholicism. There was Portugal, Italy and Spain. And when you know, when the earthquake devastated Lisbon, the mentalities changed. People started asking like, where was God now that we worship and we pay him tribute every day? You know, we get burned at the stake and we live miserably, and then he sent us an earthquake. So it kind of was very symbolic, and we kind of like to think about it. It's like making a movie. You know, I always think that a good concept and good lyrics can work as a script. And when you read something, when you read a book or whatever, you always find like images that can translate into music. So I think that was the case with 1755, and it's also kind of the way we work with Moonspell. I always like to write a lot, and sometimes some stuff it's actually good enough, you know, to pursue and to make it into an album. It was the case of 1755, which is a history that we learned since high school, you know, and everything really started in a classroom. Yeah.
You really touched us New Yorkers' hearts with what you said, because about a city that falls and rises, and saying that we would understand that actually really meant a lot, especially since it's going to be the 17th anniversary since that happened.
The other day I was just wondering, well, today I was walking around and was like, you know, even if you never visit New York, you will recognize it immediately when you come here. And when you see all these fiction movies, like there's no city in the history of cinema that has been so many times devastated and run over everyone. And when it happened, for real, it was such a shock. And even though it's probably, it will never be old news, you know, because it was something that only a true city with true people that love the city and make the city could bring something together, you know, that you walk in the streets now completely safe, and it got its mojo back. Of course, if you go back to the 18th century, it was different. But on the other hand, it took a lot of course, that, like for instance, our king back then escaped. He never came to Lisbon again. He dreaded the thought that the earth will shake again. And everything was constructed, by the people, by the spirit of Lisbon, and it changed a lot. So whenever a city falls, you always to, the only right thing is to start building it next day. That's what exactly happened in New York, and what happened in Lisbon so many years ago.
It's not about how you fall; it's how you rise back up again.
Everybody says like, well, 1755, it's like about an earthquake. But I'm not really talking about the natural disaster. I'm talking what happened on the day and what happened next, how the mentalities changed, how Lisbon, for instance, stopped being like a church completely devoted to God, and it became a little bit more liberal, more atheist, more independent. So, whenever you have a big event, you always have to read it throughout history. And I think that after so many centuries, after 1755, we can read with more clarity a lot of the lessons that were there, because Portugal was just Catholic. And after 1755, we could advance really fast into a republic, and where you have freedom of religion, and that wouldn't happen if it wasn't for the earthquake. It's a bit bad to say this, but it's the truth. Yeah.
Sometimes darkness can show you the light.
I think so, because and especially destruction and all of that. Of course, you can focus. You are in a metal band. You can focus about counting the dead, but that's so much more than just counting the dead. It's something that's just it dies, but it gets a new life immediately. Some cities just die and disappear from the map, but probably not the strong cities like Lisbon. Yeah.
Exactly. And just recently, you put out your live album, Lisbon Under the Sun. I don't know how to say Under the Spell. And, with that, you performed two of your older records in its entirety, Wolfheart and Irreligious, as well as your most recent record before 755, Extinct. Just out of curiosity, was there like a different reaction when you performed an older record in its entirety versus a newer record?
Well, there's no love like the fuss. Whenever I go to Iron Maiden, with all due respect, Maiden or Metallica or Priest, when they play like the old stuff, I grew up with that. So sometimes it's not really about the band, it's about you as a fan, or about them as a fan, in the case of Lisbon Under the Spell. So I think he offers no discussion for us that a show has to be something for the crowd as well. And as it was a really big show, I think Wolfheart and Irreligious laid our foundations as a band and also our fan base. So it's quite right that it definitely has a special welcoming, a special reception as well. But on the other hand, we don't like to live just in the past, because as I say, our past was completely unpredictable. It turned out to be good for us, and finished trying to make me laugh. Yeah. And we know each other for many years, me and Essa. And so we definitely wanted to document this on the record, because people say, like, in the 90s, 95, 96, when these albums were out, it's like, oh, we could never play them like in their entirety, because we were supporting, we had half an hour, so we couldn't do it. So we did it, we had a great feeling about it, but also we added Extinct so that people don't lose the musical thread as well. And also it was the last date for the Road to Extinction tour that we did, and that came here to the States as well. So we just put it together, and sometimes I think people just over debate this, because when you listen to the triple album, whatever, even though the other stuff is from the 90s and Extinct from 2015, you can still recognize it's the same band.
Yeah, you guys definitely have a signature sound where, like, it's, there's some bands where you could be like, oh, I like this album from the early days, not so much their newer stuff, or vice versa. So, like, it's cool that you guys are able to experiment and try new things, but not abandon your roots.
We always, coming up as a 90s band, what happened in metal was something a little bit more different. Nowadays there's even more styles, but at that time people were really interested in fusing stuff. That's why we got albums like ours but also albums like Wild Honey from Tiamat, which mixed like Pink Floyd with death metal. It was amazing, you know. They were really amazing times. So experimentation was always like something we knew we will do, but without breaking our sound features and characteristics. Because sometimes people ask me, "What's your goal as a musician?" And my goal was always that someone puts a CD or whatever or streams or and recognizes it as Moonspell. You know, it sounds very simple, but it's the hardest to have like a signature sound. And I think we can still evolve. I think 2015 Extinct really, I think, brought up like the best we have as a band, and also Ernst Borgren did a great job in the production. So even though 1755 was more something of a whim to the band, and Napalm Records like, well, let's release an album, wasn't in the plans, but you know, it doesn't need to be in the plans. It's not like you have a minimum recording commitment and then you have to deliver, you know, it's not like delivering pizza or something. You cannot really book it, you know.
If everything was planned, half of us wouldn't exist.
That's true, yeah. That's true. And there's plans also, you know, to make probably half of us don't exist anymore. So, yeah, that's true. But spontaneity is something really important, because sometimes you just get caught up like between tour, new album cycles, and it's up to the bands to break them, you know.
Definitely. And just two more questions I have is it's especially tonight. I've seen you 3 times. Once on your Septic Flesh tour,
Right.
once with the Epica tour that you were on, and now just recently. Your live shows, like for me, when I'm hearing your songs live, is a completely different experience than when I'm listening into my headphones, because you have a great stage presence with production and lighting. So, watch the camera. How different is it playing these songs live versus playing them in like the studio or practice space?
Well, everything has its place and time, and everything has its you know, enchantment for the band. We really like to work in the studio. That's a very cool experience for the band, because it's exactly the opposite of playing live. It's very private, you know, and I kind of enjoy that that moment that you're working on something, and then people don't really know about it. You know, I know nowadays as the internet and all this anticipation is lost, but I still like to work in a way that it's not lost, because it really contributes to the final result of the album. But we learned from a very tender age that you know, playing live is what separates boys from men, you know. And when we did Wolfheart back in '95, it was a very successful album, but it was not like, hey, the Moonspell album is out, let's run to the shops. No, we had to make a couple of tours, you know, on a van, like 8 weeks, going everywhere in Europe. So we always like excited to play live, because I think, as you say, you can get more the complete picture. It's great to listen to music because you can make your own picture, but live, and we hope we grow as a band also in the United States to keep bringing more and more and more production, more lighting, more stuff, because we have a lot of props and everything. And it's really like we always wanted to be like a visual kind of band when we do music. And when you are on stage, I think it's the perfect chance, perfect opportunity to make these words come true. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And the final question I wanted to ask you is, because, you know, we just interviewed a band from Finland and a band from Sweden, and, you know, the fact that President Obama was able to acknowledge their metal scene goes to show how crazy it is there. But when it comes to metal in Portugal, you guys are definitely the first band people think of. But was there like a scene in Portugal that you guys cut your teeth in, or did you guys kind of have to go outside your own country in order to get Moonspell's name out there?
I mean, we had to go outside, but that happens with all Portuguese athletes, musicians, chefs. You know, we have to go outside. It's like the proof of quality. If you can like fool a foreigner, or if you can impress him, then you're the best in Portugal. But I think there was always a scene in Portugal since the late 70s, you know, but I don't think that bands were ambitious. You know, they were content in being the Portuguese version of Iron Maiden, Sepultura, or Paradise Lost, or Machine Head. It really depends what was the flavor of the day. And I always thought, like, why should people listen to a replica or a clone from Portugal when they can have, you know, the original bands? So one thing we always tried with Moonspell was not to sound as a Portuguese version of these bands. You know, of course we have our influences, but we try to play them in a way that we could sound at least original and interesting, adding to the fact we are from Portugal. I think, to be honest, the Portuguese scene needs a lot of work. So we're putting our hands to work. We just formed a new label called Alma Mater Records, and even though it's dedicated to the old repertoire of Moonspell, for collectors, vinyl, cool editions, we opened just also the chance of signing Portuguese bands, because they're not on the radar of the labels. So and they are on my radar because I live in Portugal. So we're going to we already released a doom metal band called Desire. Yeah, they're very old band, but they're going to make a new album, so we released their stuff, and it was great. We sold out the edition, and we doing a death metal band from Portugal called Occultist. I think I can think a lot about the Portuguese scene. I can talk a lot about it, but I think with our experience and with our knowledge and also the contacts we have, it's time a little bit to stop talking and do something about it, because there's great bands in Portugal since the late 70s, but they never really got the chance. Or when they got the chance, they didn't know what to do with it, And we didn't know what to do with it, but we just stayed put and went on tour. And then eventually, it just, the question answered itself. We were already on tour. We couldn't do anything else besides being a band. So I think Portugal still has a lot of stuff to give. And I hope that more Portuguese metal bands, start coming here to New York, etc. I think it will be awesome for everyone.
We'll welcome them with open arms.
Cool.
Yeah. So before we go, thank you so much for your time. Just it's 1755 came out at the tail end of 2017. So you're on a brand new record cycle. Just what could we be expecting from Moonspell that you're allowed to talk about? Obviously,
I'm allowed to talk about anything, but this U.S. tour is really important for us because it's been the last tour we did was with Epica. We still have a lot of shows in Portugal, and we end up the year in Mexico, which is one of the countries that loves the most Moonspell. And we're setting up to make, just get together, write. We are not in a rush, but I think 2019 will for sure have a new album. I think so. We can write in 2019 and record in probably 2020. Man, 2020, it sounds like, the future. I thought the world will end in 2000.
Back to the Future lied to me. We were supposed to have hoverboards at this time and everything, and I don't see it. I'm still taking the subway to work.
You have to go to Portugal because we have a lot of overboards now, and kids are crazy about it. I was like, this is Back to the Future, yeah? And they were running in it, yeah?
And I still have to tie my own shoes. We're supposed to have self-lacing shoes.
Yeah, I think they're hiding them from us. That and the cure for certain diseases that's totally, unknown to the masses, yeah?
We'll get them.
Yeah,
we'll get them. But thank you so much,
Thank you,
Fernando.
man.
Everybody, we are here with Moonspell. Pick up 1755 if you haven't already, as well as their triple live album, Lisbosa, Underneath the Spell. This is Alex from Heavy New York. Catch them on their tour with Omnium Gatherum, Dark Tranquility, and Amorphous. We'll see you next time.